last sort of couple of game weeks have just really sort of changed the picture of the Championship.
There's wheels coming off all over the place. There's debris everywhere on this racetrack.
What they've done is absolutely incredible.
That kind of sums up how we just sometimes look like a team that's had 6 different managers in the dugout this season. Yeah.
So are Birmingham staying up, Conor? Can you answer the question? Hello guys, welcome to this episode of the Sportsman Untitled, and we've got an EFL special for you as we approach the run-in. There's pressure causing chaos at the top of the Championship. The bottom of the Championship's not getting any less stressful, and we're going to talk about League One and League Two. Joining me today are Gab Sutton and Conor Keane, so let's get into it. Right, we have to start at the top of the Championship, don't we? I mean, there's wheels coming off all over the place. There's debris everywhere on this racetrack. Currently Ipswich are top, but all of the top 3, none of them have won any of their last 2 games. Leeds lost, obviously, to Blackburn at home this weekend. Conor, how are you feeling about the top 3 at the moment? We'll come to Southampton later.
It's bonkers. It's like the pressure's really starting to show now, and it's really hard to predict how far it will go. Like there's I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like the angst from supporters that is getting on their backs. I don't know if it's just so close yet so far away. You just think like they're really starting to show the fight, like the final running is just being epitomised in like the last few weeks. And obviously you look at it now and you think, Southampton, who a few weeks ago you would have said, oh yeah, they'll be a very good, bet in the playoffs. And now you're thinking, oh my God, they could maybe go all the way and do the thing if they keep slipping up. It's just absolutely bonkers, but that is what makes the Championship so beautiful.
And we all felt kind of confident on Leeds a few weeks ago, I think, in terms of even winning the title under Farke. Gab, what are you making of what's going on them in terms of them dropping points at Ellen Road again, and the fans seem a bit nervy?
Yeah, I think there's always that expectation with Leeds United, and maybe coming to the crunch point of the season that's affected them a little bit. I've often felt about Leeds that their front 4, whether it's been with Peterborough as it was in the first half of the season, or with Bamford up top, maybe in the second half, the front 4 is really strong. Sometimes they miss a little bit of creativity from deep. Not 100%. Archie Gray, as a 17-year-old lad, has had an incredible season. Won Young Player of the Year last night. Well done to him. But I do still think sometimes in the fullback areas, Leeds can be a bit short as well as maybe in deeper midfield. So I feel like they're maybe missing ways of opening teams up in different ways. They've been so strong on the counter-attack when they've had space to really drive into. But I think teams have been finding ways of defending against them recently.
And Ipswich Town are now top of the league and have actually extended that lead by the fact that they've not lost a game, they've drawn 2. It feels like a bit of a missed opportunity for them, but this is the highest kind of standard Championship we're ever talking about, Conor. How do you feel about Ipswich heading into these final few games?
Well, this is the thing with Ipswich, it's like they've seemed like when they've had setbacks throughout the season, they always seem to recover, and obviously at this stage of the season it's like more important than ever that they do. And obviously they've now surpassed the record for a points total for a team promoted from the Championship, obviously beating Southampton's record from over a decade ago, and we all know how good a team they were, and obviously went on to have a very fruitful spell in the Premier League. So to have beaten that, you've got to give them credit, and obviously they deserve where they are right now. And obviously I think a lot of the neutrals are hoping that they do it just to show that things like this are possible against teams with parachute payments. I mean, I saw last week or whatever the Sheffield Wednesday reporter basically saying, oh yeah, let's not act like Ipswich haven't spent money. It's nothing in comparison to the teams they're competing against. So, come on, this is great. It's great for the Championship. It's good for English football, and, for me personally, I'd love them to go all the way and win it because it's just a great story.
They're certainly the underdogs going into this kind of final run-in, I think. Gab, which of these 3 teams that we've talked up all season are you most concerned about right now in terms of not finishing in the top 2? We've got Leicester, who have lost 1-0 to Millwall, then lost 1-0 to Plymouth. And there's a lot of worries over there, and there's not a lot of confidence from the fans towards Enzo Maresca at the minute. For me, they're my biggest concern at the minute. Would you agree with that, or are you more concerned about a Leeds or an Ipswich?
I'd probably say I'm a bit more concerned about Leeds. I think Ipswich, funny, they've dropped points lately like everyone has, but actually a couple of draws in different circumstances that would have set them back such a long way, but because of the results, with Leicester losing back-to-back games and Leeds' form as well, they're actually probably in a better position after drawing a couple of games than they would have been beforehand. I think with Leicester, I'm still going to say Leicester for top two because I felt like they're still creating chances in some of their games. I think there is a little bit of edginess about them in the final third and when they get their chances. But I do think that if they get a win in their next game, that the confidence will come flooding back again. I'd probably say Leeds would be the team that I'm most concerned about.
Conor, what do you think about that?
I think the points are very valid, but I am still concerned for Leicester because it's obviously to have been in the position that they were in, 17 points clear, and obviously now it's like you're thinking they may not even finish in the top two. I just think the players now really need to show the mentality that we can recover this and get the job done. Obviously they found a way to beat Birmingham the other week, late on, as you'd probably expect them to do back then. But then obviously to go and lose the way they did against Plymouth, who have been struggling ever since the departure of Steven Schumacher, you just think, it's one step forward and then two steps back. I still think, even though they have a game in hand, I still think I'm still most concerned about them for the top two.
We'll come on to the specific fixtures for the run in a moment, but it's now time to talk about Southampton because, as you said earlier, Conor, I think we all kind of settled that they'd be a strong playoff contender. They've got 2 games in hand on Ipswich and Leeds, 1 game in hand on Leicester. They're playing Preston on Tuesday night. If they win that, they are only going to be 3 points behind Leeds in third. They've still got to play Leicester away. They've still got to play Leeds away on the final day, which should be an absolute thriller for anyone watching. Can they do it, Conor? Are they really in the mix now to not only go up, but maybe even win the title?
Yeah, I mean, to have that many games in hand with, the final running coming up, especially, taking on 2 of your rivals who have obviously had these setbacks, while you have the momentum, you just think, this is brilliant. As a Southampton fan, you're thinking, this is really doable. I think with the way that Southampton have played, we've spoken about it before, it's I think that as a footballing team, that I think they have played the best football throughout the season because when I've seen them play on TV or when I saw them live play against Birmingham, they just do not let teams really have the ball, and obviously sometimes they have made errors where they've obviously conceded goals, but still the way they play and the way they're set up, it's just they are now perfectly set up for this final stretch of games to snatch the title away from everyone's noses.
Do you know what as well, Conor? I would hate to be an opposing team against Southampton that falls behind because they look after the ball so well, don't they? And it's you've got to keep tiring yourself out. And I think what a lot of teams find is that by the time they've got the ball, they're just exhausted because they've done so much running around. So yeah, Southampton do look after the ball so well, and I think that's why they'll feel they've got a chance going into the run-in.
I completely agree with you there, Gab. I watched Southampton commentary the other night, and Hadji Wright missed an early penalty, and you knew as soon as he'd missed that you kind of knew which way the result was going because that's just how good Southampton are. Lost 2-1 in the end, and they are the form team, which is kind of incredible to say at this moment in time. Let's look at the fixtures because it gets to this stage and who you've got left to play plays a massive part in how many points you can pick up.
Sure.
So Ipswich have got Hull away, Coventry away and Huddersfield at home. So there's 2 kind of tricky away games in there. Leicester, West Brom at home, Southampton at home, Preston away and Blackburn at home. Kind of difficult ones there. The next 2, especially for Leicester, West Brom and Southampton. Gab, what do you think of those 2 fixtures? They're both at home, which would you say is a big advantage for Maresca?
Do you know what? I don't know anymore because it's every team's just been dropping points in games that you'd think they should win. It's very difficult for me now to look at a fixture and say, yes, that's a favourable one because we sort of don't know where we've at. The last sort of couple of game weeks have just really sort of changed the picture of the Championship where teams have dropped points. So I think for Leicester, I think West Brom is going to be a crucial game. They've got to get those 3 points in that one.
Definitely, and Leeds' remaining fixtures, they've got Barrow away, QPR away and Southampton at home, as we've already mentioned, on the final day. For Southampton, Preston at home on Tuesday, Cardiff away, Leicester away, Stoke at home and Leeds away. Obviously they're the form team at the moment. So kind of summarising all of that, Conor, who's your money on? If you're a betting man, who are you putting your £1.50 on to get promoted?
So do you want the two or?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So right now I would lean towards Ipswich and Southampton, but not in that order necessarily.
Okay. That's
interesting.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, obviously, as we were discussing about Southampton, then momentum's with them. Obviously, the games in hand will play into it. You know, you just think like the way they're playing, and obviously, as Gab said, like, you know, teams playing them once they go down, they just get exhausted, so they don't even have anything left in the tank to even try and salvage something from the game in most cases. I just think like with the quality that they do have, I think that should be enough to get them over the line. And Ipswich, it's like, you know, some people have wondered will they keep it up throughout the bulk of the season. They have done. They're continuing to do it, and obviously, even though they've had a setback with 2 draws, they've still picked up points where their rivals have dropped them. So I just think like even when they're not at their best, like they are still managing a way to come out with points. So I just think you've got to back them.
They're streets ahead of schedule as well, aren't they, Conor? It's like this season, most Ipswich fans would have felt, we can get into the top 10, but there's no real pressure on us to do anything. It's all about consolidation, and I think there is optimism that they might finish in the top half, but not necessarily a sort of expectation on challenging for promotion. So I think if Ipswich miss out on promotion this year, they've still had an absolutely astonishing season, whereas I think there's pressure on Leicester, Leeds and Southampton.
Gab, can I push you for a top 2 prediction at this stage?
I would say Leicester and Ipswich.
Okay, still confident on Leicester.
I'm sticking with Leicester, just about.
I will say, if Southampton, we mentioned the fact they've got Leicester and Leeds to play away from home. If they lose one of those games, it's such a big advantage for whoever beats them, Leicester or Leeds. Because essentially they knock Southampton kind of almost out of the running completely. Right, that's our top 4 chat done. Quick question on the playoffs. Gab, do we think they're now kind of decided? With Norwich winning late at Preston, obviously Coventry lost. Norwich are 6 points clear of Hull, although Hull have a game in hand. Do we think there's any chance that Hull can kind of make up that ground?
Is it 3 to play for Hull?
Hull have got 4 to play. Norwich have got 3 to play.
Okay, I think Norwich have put themselves in a great position, I have to say. Do you have the fixtures to hand by any chance for Norwich?
I don't have the fixtures to hand for Norwich.
I've thrown you a hospital pass there. So. I think Norwich have put themselves in a great position with the form that they've been in since the middle third of the campaign. I think they won 3-2 at Cardiff in November, and all of a sudden that's just sparked this sort of surprising run of form. And you've got to credit David Wagner, because there were lots of people asking questions at certain points of the season, and I think he's found a lot of answers. And to be fair, Gabriel Sara's been joy to watch. I was delighted to see him get into the team of the season last night.
Conor, do you think the playoffs kind of wrapped up? There's a word to be said on West Brom, by the way, because Norwich are now only a point behind them, so it feels like those two are kind of set. But if Hull were to go on a kind of 4-game winning streak, they would be putting the pressure on both of those teams.
Yes, obviously, like, you know, Hull with the game in hand, they'll think, we've still got a bit of an outside chance. I think it's not as, like, you know, a greater chance as you'd think with having that game in hand, because obviously, like, the teams they've, you know, got to leapfrog, because I'm still expecting Norwich and West Brom to pick up points in the final few games. For Albion, I think, like they've got to play Leicester, and obviously it's bigger for Leicester than it is for them, but they've still got to be mindful that there are teams beneath them who are still, you know, trying to like nab one of the final 2 playoff spots. But yeah, I think it will stay as it is for now. I'm convinced that both those teams have more than enough to keep their position in the playoffs. But obviously, it's like for Norwich, like, are they hoping 6th will get them an East Anglian derby, like 2-legged semi-final, or are they thinking no, let's maybe try and get them in a final, or, you know, or something like that?
I don't think you can plan ahead at this stage. We don't know what order the top 4 will finish in.
It's still, you know, so many different possibilities. But I think for West Brom, for how strong defensively they have been overall at home this season, I think it doesn't really matter who they get in the playoffs. I think they'll be confident that their home leg they'll be very solid defensively, so I don't think they'll be faced by whoever they end up facing in the semi-finals. A
couple of key fixtures coming up there. Ipswich have got to go to Hull, and you think if Ipswich beat Hull, that is the end of Hull's kind of
I think that's what I factored in, is the fact that obviously Ipswich are still, you know, they've got a lot more to play for right now than Hull do. And yeah, I just think Hull, they've done well to recover from their recent setback of like, I can't remember, was it like 4 or 5 games without a win? Like they've done well to recover from that, but I just think like Ipswich will. I just still think they'll have too much quality for them.
I think Hull next season are going to need a bit more up top than they've maybe had this season. They had Liam Delap on loan from Man City in the first half of the campaign, and he did quite well, sort of 7 out of 10 type thing. Since he's been recalled, they brought in, I think it's Noah Ohio and Billy Sharp, and neither of them have quite been what they needed. So for me, that's what Liam Mousinho's got to try and strengthen. But I think it's been huge progress for Hull. I think they can be really pleased with their season's work if they do just miss out. And I think that they'll feel like they've got some great foundations to go into next season with.
It will be interesting to see what like their access to funds will be like last year, because obviously they pushed the boat out a bit this year, didn't they? Especially like to help them try and get over the line in January with the the arrivals of Carvalho, yeah, and I forget his name now. The left back,
Ryan Giles,
Ryan Giles,
sure.
And obviously, you just think, to brought in players of that caliber, you think, right, Hull have really pushed the boat out here. Whereas obviously, you do think that questions will be there. It's like, will they be able to go as all in next season, or will they have to maybe try and gain some of that cash back from players?
But I mean, if they sell Jacob Greaves for 25-30 million, people have been talking about, then they've got that opportunity to reinvest. I love the sort of connection that Liam Mousinho has with Hull City, because his grandma was a Hull fan, and there's this sort of whole sort of family history, and he's really kind of bought into the fabric of the football club as well as his coaching talent. So I can see why people were sceptical of him being nominated for Manager of the Year in the Championship, and I'm not sure he'd be my choice, but I've been really impressed with the work that he's done on Humberside, and I'm expecting that to continue.
I agree with you as well. Like, obviously, you think the list of the nominees, and he was there, thinking, obviously, most likely had been picked a few months ago, obviously, when it was more favourable for Hull. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Mousinho, even back to the days where he was like had what Joby McAnuff now is to Sky Sports, when he used to be like the sort of pundit, and he just came across so well. Like his intelligence and knowledge of the game was just phenomenal. So there was no doubt that he would go on to become a good coach, and obviously it's being proved now. Obviously at Hull.
Right, let's turn our attention to the chaos at the bottom end of the Championship now, and I've done quite well here, because I managed to get both Birmingham City fans in the same room. The budget's stretched to that.
There you go.
I'm only saying that because I'm very bitter after the huge 3-0 win for Birmingham this weekend. Gab, let's start with you. How are you feeling about the Blues staying up? That was such a big win in terms of their survival hopes. Rotherham to come. That's a must-win game. It feels like the tide's kind of turned for Birmingham. Yeah,
absolutely. I was at the Cardiff game on Wednesday, and we were actually probably shaded the first half, but then I think in the second half, especially after we conceded, there was sort of a worrying lack of resilience, a worrying lack of fight, and it felt like the players had given up quite easily. And I could see, actually, when Wayne Rooney first came in, he was asking the players to play out from the back, and they'd been used to a slightly more direct system under John Eustace. Now I think the roles are reversed, where the players have got to a stage where they're actually more comfortable playing out from the back, from what I saw against Cardiff, but Gary Rowett wants them to get the ball forward earlier. So I think that kind of sums up how we just sometimes look like a team that's had 6 different managers in the dugout this season. I think that's been the challenge, but I think in those home Saturday games where under Gary Rowett, where we've had a real full house, we've been able to get it rocking. I think Tom Wagner's played a part in that. The atmosphere has kind of carried the players through, and there's been big supporters. I think we were talking off air, Conor, about the double pivot of Sunic and Bielik and how important that is.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't even have to necessarily be the double pivot. It's just you've got to have them both on the field. Whether it's obviously Bielik being like the ball playing centre back, and Sunic obviously in midfield. You just got to have both of them on the pitch, because obviously when they're on the pitch, you get aggression. You get a lot of chasing, and obviously that physical presence, it has been so lacking this season with a lot of our like flair players. Obviously with Alex Pritchard, Pei Sung Ho. You know,
Miyoshi, I really like actually. I thought,
obviously the big worry going into the season was like, Koji Miyoshi, small Japanese player, like how will he cope with the physicality? He has struggled at times against like some of the bigger defenders, but to still come away with a decent amount of goals and assists, and obviously the creativity that we have when he's in the side, like it's been so important.
I agree with that. So you both think Blues are staying up, right?
Well, I mean, obviously the last time I was on here, I was like, that's it. We just got to start planning for League One now.
Negative.
But obviously, a month ago I watched us play Borough and Watford back to back at home, and there were games that were both there for the taking. Like neither of the opposition were brilliant. Like we just gifted them both goals for 1-0 wins, and obviously I just thought, I just don't think they have that sort of like, character to dig them out of the hole that they're in. Obviously, as we've seen now, obviously with Sunderland a few months ago, and obviously with Coventry now at the weekend, the full St Andrews is making such a difference, and it's helping carry the players over the line. Obviously, we've got one more to go now with Norwich, but obviously we've got two massive away games back to back against Rotherham, who are already down, so you don't know what to expect there. And then I think obviously for our sake and Huddersfield, I think that one the week after is going to be like that is the decider.
Yeah.
So are Birmingham staying up, Conor? Can you answer the question? It's just a yes or no. Come on.
I'm 60-40 yes.
Okay, we'll say that. Gab, you a bit more confident?
Are we going percentages now? I'm going to say just yes. Yes.
We'll take that. Blackburn helped their kind of survival hopes massively this weekend with that win at Leeds. Sammy Szmodek's getting yet another goal. Unbelievable. We'll come on to him later, potentially winning the Player of the Year award. It feels like the likes of Blackburn and Plymouth this weekend, might be slightly reactionary, have kind of moved nearer that 50-point mark and moved away from the teams battling relegation. Gab, would you agree that they're probably both looking nearly there?
They've both picked up huge results, that's for sure. Blackburn, especially in light of that 5-0 loss at Bristol City, really resilient sort of reaction. Well done to Ainsley Pearce. I thought he was outstanding. You need your goalkeeper to put in a great performance. And then Plymouth Argyle, you've got to give credit to Kevin Nanceville, because what I think Argyle really needed after Ian Foster left was someone to galvanise the whole club and bring back the sense of unity that maybe I think internally the club feel was lost a bit under the previous regime. And I think Nanceville, he's an Argyle fan, he's coached the club for a decade and done various different roles at the club, so he's a very popular local figure, and I think he's just been someone who can galvanise the club. I couldn't imagine him staying on to be number one next season, but I think he's probably been what they needed. So well done to Blackburn and Argyle, because they do look like they've got a little bit closer, don't they?
They've spoken, the players as well, about kind of the unity coming back towards that Argyle dressing room, which seems to have been lost for one reason or another under Ian Foster, and that home form at Home Park is so important to them staying up, as we saw on Friday. I was looking at the fixtures for the remaining kind of relegation candidates. QPR, we thought, were kind of sailing clear under Martí Cifuentes. They're in a bit of dodgy form. They've got the toughest run-in on paper. They've got to play Preston at home, Leeds at home and Coventry away in their last 3 games. They've only got 1 point from their last 3 games. Conor, do you think we should be a bit worried about QPR?
Yeah,
QPR fans worried as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, once again, going back to the last time I was on here, like you thought, they've probably got themselves over the line now. And now you look at it, I think we're like Birmingham are just 2 points behind them. So they've been pulled back into it yet again, and obviously the victories for Plymouth and Blackburn haven't helped them either. And it's why I think even with like three or so games left to go, I still think like the standings will change so much like in the coming weeks. And I think with that run-in that you've just mentioned, like they've still got their work cut out with them just to get them over the line now, which is bizarre considering where they were a couple of weeks ago.
Gab, how are you feeling about QPR?
I don't know if I agree in terms of the fixtures, because I think while Leeds is obviously going to be a tough game, even if they lose that, I would still back them to beat one of Preston North End or Coventry, bearing in mind that the Coventry game's on the final day, so by that point Coventry might have nothing to play for. So sometimes I think we can get too bogged down in league positions when assessing the toughness of a fixture, and actually it's more about the state of play for those sides. So for me, Preston North End are out of the playoff running now as well. I think they'll beat one of them or Coventry and get to that 50-point mark.
Brilliant. Another team to be concerned about are Stoke at the minute. It seems like they're just kind of not picking up the wins they need, are they? Getting a few draws of late. Gab, are they going to be okay? But more importantly, what kind of needs to change at Stoke moving forward?
Well, I think they bought in 19 players last summer, so they've kind of used up the possibility of a complete rebuild. So there's been decisions that they made last summer that they've kind of just got to move forward with, whether they're in the Championship next season or in League One, because they're just not going to offload those players. Now, I also think that a lot of them are on the younger side. They've being given 3-4 year contracts, so the hope is going to be that some of them get a little bit better. But I think what they're going to need next season is a few more experienced heads who can actually bring some of the intangibles, a bit of leadership, a bit of some battling qualities, just to give them a bit of balance, because I think that's been what they've been missing this season. Jonathan Walters, bring him back as technical director initially on an interim basis, and now he's been made sporting director. I think that's had a bit of an impact in terms of his rallying cry and a bit of a mood around the fans, but I think they've got a lot of work to do, that's for sure.
Let's kind of move on to the team stuck in the relegation zone at the minute. Huddersfield and Sheffield Wednesday picking up, they're actually unbeaten in their last 3, I think, 2 draws and a win. It doesn't feel like things are quite turning around quickly enough for either of these two teams. I think I'm more concerned about Huddersfield than Sheffield Wednesday right now.
Yeah.
Gab, would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think what you've seen with Danny Röhl is sort of mid-table, possibly top half form since he took charge, but it's just because they had the worst start in Championship history under Žižko Munoz, and then that meant that even with a really impressive turnaround, they're still in the predicament that they find themselves in. So, listen, Danny Röhl's done, whether they're relegated or not, Danny Röhl's done his reputation an absolute world of good with his work on Hillsborough. At Hillsborough even, he's not been working on the ground. But yeah, I think I'm very worried about Huddersfield, I have to say.
And Huddersfield obviously still have to play Birmingham, Conor. They've also got to play Ipswich away on the final day. It feels a little bit like they're the most likely to go down with Rotherham at this moment.
Yeah, but as I touched on before, I think the game between Birmingham and Huddersfield is massive, and obviously the fact that it is at Huddersfield, obviously you think, the players will be up for that, and obviously our away form has been poor throughout the season, so obviously that will be a huge test. But obviously if we manage to go to beat Rotherham this weekend, you'd go there with a bit more sense of comfort, but even still it's you'd still want to leave Huddersfield with the same amount of gap you had on them as you did before.
I think if we win at Rotherham, then a point at Huddersfield's probably going to be okay, whereas if we fail to beat Rotherham, then we've absolutely got to go there and win.
But just touching on what Gab was saying before about obviously league positions and what's left to play for, it could then still give Birmingham a chance against Norwich, because they could have already sealed their playoff spots. And obviously, if it's another packed-out home game, you think, the crowd might be able to carry the players through for another 3 points, or even a vital point, which could prove to be at that stage.
Well, when Huddersfield got promoted in 2017, their final day or penultimate day was actually at St Andrews, when they'd already won at Wolves the week before to sort of book their playoff spot, and then they rotated the team, and that gave Blues a massive advantage. So whether the Norwich final day game could actually work as a favourable fixture, or I was
just thinking, because I feel like there was a lot of fallout and hoo-ha about what David Wagner did at Huddersfield back then against us, with loads of changes, and I can't remember if they enforced a regulation now where you can't make too many changes to your team.
I don't know that. I don't think Gab's probably the one to ask. I think the managers can do what he wants.
Because I feel like they were talking. I don't know if it ever actually went through, but I think they were talking about something to possibly change, bring in a rule.
I don't think the EFL could ever say that team isn't the strongest team for that game. So I don't think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I know, especially with what Norwich have in their squad anyway. So yeah, but honestly, I think just obviously going back now anyway is just. Yeah, Huddersfield we do have to be worried about, because obviously they have had games in recent weeks where performances and fight have been there, but obviously it's not been enough, and obviously at this point in the season you've got to find a way to pick up those points.
Right guys, let's round off this relegation chat with our predictions to go down. Huddersfield are in danger, Rotherham have already gone. Gab, how do you see this one panning out, and how does the season end?
I think Huddersfield go down. and I think Sheffield Wednesday go down just.
So as it stands, I think I probably agree with you, just because I think Stoke have got 2 home games and they're winnable home games, and I think 1 win will probably be enough. And they've been coming close. They've been competitive in games. I'm a bit worried about Huddersfield. Connor, are you on the same?
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you both, to be honest, because obviously Wednesday, like, was it was saying they were unbeaten in the last 3, but obviously after beating QPR, they've had back-to-back draws, which obviously really hasn't helped their case. And I mean, I don't know, were they home? Were they Sheffield? Were they QPR? Was QPR away?
You're throwing me under the bus there, Connor.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Sheffield Wednesday have Blackburn away, West Brom at home and Sunderland away, which I know as we've spoken about, fixtures are hard to judge at this time.
Blackburn have been tough. I have obviously, that'll be tough for them.
West Brom.
Obviously, and that's at E, would you say?
Yes.
Yeah, and obviously after that Leeds win, they'll be high on adrenaline. And I mean, like everyone has been saying about Blackburn's running being tough, but I'm just such a big fan of John Eustace that I thought he pulled them out of danger, no worries. And obviously they'll be looking themselves now to doubt. They'd see the Sheffield Wednesday game as basically securing their safety, basically. So yeah, I think that'll be tough, and I think that is why I will lean towards them going down with Huddersfield now.
Lovely. We had a EFL Awards ceremony last night, the glitz and glamour of the EFL. Let's talk a bit about the Championship Awards that were handed out. Somerville from Leeds winning Player of the Year. Gab, do we think that was the right decision in terms of the contenders that were up with it?
Yes. And I tell you why. I understand why lots of people would say Sammy Smodic should have got Player of the Year because of scoring 24 goals in a struggling Blackburn team that isn't exactly oozing with creativity all the time. But I think that while Sammy Smodic scoring 24 goals was the bigger achievement than anything Crescencio Somerville has done, even if he wins promotion with Leeds, I don't think there can be any doubt that Crescencio Somerville has been the better player, and that's where I'd probably base my decision on. So I think it was the correct call.
Interesting, Gab, because for me, I think Somerville's clearly the best player in the Championship, but Smodic has had an incredible season, and I think it's Player of the Season, not Player of the Championship. So it depends if you kind of weigh up an achievement versus the quality of player. Connor, I don't know if you want to get involved in this.
Yeah, the way I see it is like I would lean towards Smodic's because more or less he's had to carry Blackburn's like attacking threat like on himself this season. So, and obviously those goals have been crucial to getting them into that position now where they look like they're just about to get themselves over the line and stay up. There's no doubting the quality of some of it. He's been incredible, like very, very talented young player. But obviously, if we're going off how contributions to one team, like a player's contributions to their respective team, I think you've got to look at Schmodix because, as I say, it's all been on his shoulders this season, and he's for someone who hasn't predominantly scored a lot of goals throughout his career, it's just amazing what he's done this season, especially like he's not a striker. He's been playing as a false nine, like he's more of an attacking midfielder from his days, brief days at Bristol City, but Peterborough especially. It's like, yeah, it's just phenomenal what he's done, and I think, he's very unlucky to have missed out last night.
Leeds secured a double as well with Archie Gray winning Young Player of the Year, and I don't think we've got any arguments, have we, about Kieran McKenna winning Manager of the Season?
None at all.
Clear winner. Like, as we've already touched on, most points from a promoted team in the Championship history. Beating that Southampton team from over a decade ago, which was very good themselves. McKenna is one of the brightest coaches in English football right now. He's going to have an amazing career. Hopefully we get to see a bit more of him at Ipswich as well, because they especially want it, and I think they deserve to have him a bit longer as well. But the sky's the limit for him. I think I really do.
I've got a question for you, Connor. If Ipswich don't go up, do you think Kieran McKenna will stay?
It's a tough one because I think yes. I think he may give it another year or so because I think they're still well positioned to give the Championship another good go next year. I think there'll be more funding for them to use as well. I just think it would take a very good offer for him to go. Everyone keeps saying,
I think it's got to be a Brighton or a West Ham or one of those European. I always thought Palace for McKenna. Obviously, they've filled that role now.
Yeah,
I think he might have to be higher up at a European chasing side.
Yeah, for how good he is. With the greatest respect to Crystal Palace fans, they've had a very good run in the Premier League, but obviously for right now, you feel like they've hit their ceiling, and I feel like he could easily go and do a job at a team that is obviously wanting something more. I mean, obviously they keep banging the drum. If Ten Hag was to go, would they, go for the outlandish of maybe considering McKenna, because obviously he used to, work there, knows the club well. I do think it'd take something like that to maybe tempt him, but I think he's the kind of person that he's happy where he is right now. And obviously, if the worst does happen and Ipswich do miss out this year, I do think that he'll think, we are very well positioned to give this another good go next year.
Do you know what, Connor? I think this stage of Kieran McKenna's career is absolutely crucial because you've got to get the decisions right while your stock is high, because there's been managers that have got incredible potential that have maybe seen the bright lights at a certain point and then gone for the big move, but they've not got themselves into the same structure that they've had at their previous club. And I think the most important thing is to continue to improve your reputation and only make the jump when the opportunity is a club that not just has the resources but also the infrastructure and the sort of the recruitment strategy and those sorts of things that just give you all the tools that you need to make sure that you continue to deliver success. Because if he gets these decisions right, I think Kieran McKenna can win a Champions League one day.
It's like you just have to think as well, like, managers who have jumped clubs who have been in better positions than Stoke City in recent years. So obviously Alex Neil and Schumacher, moves that I think most people would say don't do it, even though obviously your pay it's likely to be better. I mean, obviously in terms of Plymouth to Stoke, their facilities will be bit better, but in terms of what Schumacher had and built at Plymouth to what he inherited at Stoke, you just think you have got a really tough job on your hands now, which has obviously been proven. And so I think it's the same with McKenna, and obviously it's just for now anyway, because he's still raw really in management. So, and obviously he's had an amazing start. Just let it play out as it is for now, because you've got years ahead of you, and obviously you are destined for the top regardless. So
patience needed for McKenna. Another manager who's doing incredibly well is one in League One, named manager of the season, John Mousinho at Portsmouth. Not quite title winners yet, but it feels like just a matter of time until they lift that trophy, Gab. What have you made of him, his job at Portsmouth this season, and how do you think they're going to fare in the Championship next season? I
think I have to confess I was one of the cynics when he first got the job, because you're appointing Oxford's fourth choice centre-back, and I think if Mousinho was poached this time around, I'm not sure they'd necessarily go for someone from the academy at Oxford United. I think it's just been incredible how quickly he's made that jump from being a player and only sort of coaching the set pieces on the side to all of a sudden being head coach of Portsmouth. But I think what's really impressed me about John Mousinho, Simon, is the way he sort of frames things positively, and not necessarily in a sort of blind way, but he's able to sort of accept the sort of constructive points, but he's also able to get people thinking in a positive direction, and I'm really impressed with his sort of leadership qualities. I think he's the perfect sort of modern manager, so I'm really excited to see what he can do in the Championship and beyond. Once this comes out, Portsmouth will probably be a Championship club.
Awesome. And it feels like a race down to two now for second place in terms of Bolton and Derby. Peterborough still have a bit of a shout. I just want to say that I think the quality of managers at the top of the League One this season is exceptional. When you think of Paul Warne, I know he's not the most popular with Derby fans at times, but he's got huge experience at League One level. Ian Evatt, he's proven his worth, weight in gold really at Bolton. Connor, how do you see kind of the second automatic place going? Is it Derby's to throw away now, it feels?
Yeah, it is, especially Derby's to lose pretty much. But as we have seen in recent weeks, they can get a really good win and then they have a setback, similar to what's been happening in the top end of the Championship. But I still think Paul Warne, with his pedigree at that level, I still think he has it in him, even though he's not the most popular figure, to get them over the line. I think the top two should stay as is now. And then obviously, it'll be interesting to see which one of Bolton, Peterborough emerge from the playoffs, because I do think it'd be one of those two.
Harrison Burrows winning Player of the Year for Peterborough. Just how good has he been, and how high can he play for you, Gab?
He's been phenomenal, Simon. He brings so much drive to Peterborough's attacking play. He always sort of gets their moves going. Sometimes he inverts himself into midfield as well, which I think will be a bit of an attraction to higher league clubs, because of the way football's evolving, starting with Pep and moving John Stones from right back into midfield. And I think Harrison Burrows, the fact that he can do that is going to catch people's eye. We've seen the quality that he can produce in the EFL Trophy final. So I think he's already shown what he can do in the Championship a couple of years ago, when I think he got about close to 10 assists and maybe 3 goals for Posh that season in a relegated side. So he's clearly got the quality. I think for someone like Ipswich, for example, if they need an understudy to Leif Davis, or even a replacement if Leif Davis goes, I think someone like Harrison Burrows would be perfect. So yeah, what a season.
Exactly the team I was about to suggest, though, if Leif Davis does move on. So maybe great minds think alike there, Gab.
And ours.
And ours too. Who do we fancy in the League One playoffs? It seems like Oxford are like the best team in the world right now. 4-0 win, a 5-0 win, beating Peterborough. I mean, they're absolutely flying. Do we think that they, obviously we've mentioned, might be Bolton and Peterborough in there with them. Seems like quite a high quality League One playoffs. Conor, I don't know if you want to
say that. I mean, my head is still saying I think it'll be one of Bolton and Peterborough, because I feel like their quality will probably shine through on in that high pressure situation. But as you've just said, you cannot ignore the form that Oxford United are in right now.
If you had to pick one, Bolton or Peterborough,
I'd lean with Bolton.
Okay.
I would. Yeah, I'm a fan of Ian Everton. What he's been doing. So yeah, I'll go with Bolton.
Gab, what do you make of the other contenders?
Well, I think Bolton win it if it's them in the playoffs, but I'm not necessarily subscribing to the view that it'll definitely be Bolton dropping into the playoffs. But I think they will win it if they are. I think Peterborough are incredible going forward. Whether they're going to miss that little bit of defensive leadership, possibly, that will be the one sort of question mark that I would have. They've not really got that experienced sort of centre half that I think they possibly miss, and I think that's led to some defensive vulnerability at times. But they've won at Wembley a few months ago, so you never know what sort of impact that can.
A few playoff scars as well from last season that need healing, I think.
Absolutely. Bit of motivation for this young side. They've got a really experienced manager as well in Darren Ferguson. Would you give him a bit of an edge over somebody like Des Buckingham, for example, who has done really well in different continents, but doesn't have. I think the EFL is a bit of a different kettle of fish, and does he have that experience of the big games? So, I think Peterborough look good. I'm trying to work out my answer as I'm talking to you. But I think Bolton win it if it's Bolton, and I'm going to go with Peterborough if it's Derby dropping into the playoffs.
Brilliant stuff. Let's drop down to League Two, where we've got a couple of promotions to celebrate. Stockport County and Wrexham both going up this weekend. It's now back-to-back promotions for Wrexham. Conor, what have you made of Wrexham this season, and more importantly, they've now climbed from National League to League One in 2 years? Yeah. Where does this journey go?
Well, obviously, now it's brilliant because obviously they've done it in back-to-back years. I mean, I don't think there was much doubt that they would be at the top end this season, with the funding that they have, and that funding, will only expand in what they're able to use now. They're in a higher division, and you just think with the financial backing that they have, that they'll be able to give League One a good go next year, especially with, if you're losing your Portsmouth, your Derbys or Boltons, you think that will still become a bit more competitive. Obviously, there are other teams in there who will miss out on promotion or playoffs who will be well positioned to give it another good go. It's Wrexham have, got a very good experienced, EFL manager in Parkinson. They've got a very good squad, and that will only strengthen as well now that they're in a higher division. And I just think, they're it may not be the third back-to-back, three consecutive promotions, but you just have to think that an appearance in the Championship probably isn't that many years away, given the resources that they've got behind them now.
And once again, I think I've fallen foul to it in the fact that I've asked you a question about League Two and we've instantly talked about Wrexham. So Gab, please praise Dave Challoner and probable champions of League Two, Stockport County.
Yeah, I think Dave Challoner's got his first EFL. Well, he has got his first EFL promotion, which is wonderful because he's had a fantastic record in non-league, and I think when managers start at a lower point, it means that they can get a little bit underestimated at a higher level because it's like, we've only done that in non-league. And I think actually Dave Challoner's done a fantastic job. Has he had certain advantages? Of course he has. But I think in the middle of the season, between those two long sort of winning streaks that Stockport went on, they had lots of injuries, certainly in midfield and in defence as well. So that's definitely been a challenge that they've had to overcome. And I think Stockport are a club that's on a very exciting trajectory.
Mansfield manager Nigel Clough winning Manager of the Year in League Two. It looks like they're going to finish third. Would you it's a matter of time till they go up? And what have you made of Mansfield? Finally, it seems, getting out of League Two after all these years of kind of investment.
Sure, I think there's two real big things that stand out to me about Mansfield, Simon. The first is they've been much stronger defensively this season. In previous years, that's been a bit of a weak point for them. But they brought in Aidan Flint, who's an experienced former Championship centre-half. Lewis Brunt on loan from Leicester has been excellent as well, although both are actually absent right at the moment. But those two have really made a difference to Mansfield defensively, along with Bailey Cargill as well. And then I suppose going forward, Davis Keeler-Dunn's been outstanding to watch. Lucas Akins with that hold-up play, and then their midfield is pretty much the same as it's been for a few seasons, and it's been one of the strongest midfields in the league. So they've always known that they can rely on that midfield, but they've also strengthened in the other two areas.
And I'll finish this by asking about the playoffs, and we have to ask about Barrow because you're on, Gab. Your favourite team, Doncaster, in red hot form, looks like they're going to gate crash the playoffs at the moment. Barrow might just cling on to a place in there. Obviously the likes of MK Dons and Crewe as well probably going to be in there. From those kind of teams in the mix, how do you kind of see them going into this, and who do you think's going up from the playoffs in League Two?
Well, Crawley have the 1 point advantage over Doncaster, and there's actually a few teams sort of just outside the playoffs, but I think it probably is between Crawley and Doncaster, and the form that Doncaster are in, 8 wins in a row, I've never seen anything like it before, Si. A team, we were talking off air, they were 20th in early March, and they're probably going to get into the playoffs. I mean, it's just the most extraordinary season. Normally it's from mid-table, or if you do see that kind of surge, it's from January, but to get from 20th in March to possibly the playoffs is extraordinary turnaround. Grant McCann's done wonderful stuff when he's had a fully fit squad to work with, and I think if Doncaster did get into the playoffs, it would be difficult to bet against them, but then I really like MK Dons and the job Mike Williamson's done as well.
Conor, how important is kind of form? If you're winning games towards the end of the season, you're flying into those playoffs like Doncaster seem to be. How much of a weighting do you give to that?
Yeah, I think it's massive. I mean, as I was saying earlier about Southampton, with their form heading into the final run, I think it's huge. Especially you're about to go in the playoffs, which are such high pressure stakes. But if you've been on such a winning run and you keep picking up points, you just think, we can't lose. That sort of confidence goes a long way heading into the playoffs. And obviously, as Gab said, that sort of momentum for Doncaster, especially, you just think you wouldn't want to bet against them, especially if they keep picking up these wins heading in, and obviously securing the playoffs, because they do have Barrow to play, don't they, in the final running. So, and if they do that, and obviously you end up swapping places with them, you just think, they'll feel like they can't lose, and I think you'd have to back them. I think right now, especially because what they've done is absolutely incredible.
I think we can finish with a real good news story from League Two, in my opinion, is Jodi Jones winning Player of the Season. This is a player who, as a youngster, was at Coventry and had 2 ACL injuries. Yeah. Really struggled to get back fit, dropped all the way down to kind of the National League and non-league with Notts County to get some game time. He's been kind of incredible for them. I don't know how many assists he's got this
24.
season. 24 assists, Gab. I knew you'd know. He's been so good, and now it looks like he's going to be on the radar of Championship clubs again if he wants a move from Notts County. Any last words on kind of Jodi Jones and his progress?
Well done to Jodi Jones. I remember watching him play for Dagenham and Redbridge on once when he was 16 years of age, and he was starting for them, and you could see then what an exciting talent. And gosh, that was 10 years ago now, but I think he obviously did wonderful things with yourself.